Well, welcome to today's webinar, Growth Amid Turbulence, How Australian Manufacturers Can Protect Profit Margins and Overcome Headwinds in 2024, sponsored by Wiise Software. My name is Margot Metcalf, Creative Director at IEC Group, and we're the organisers of the Modern Manufacturing Expo. I would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we all gather and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Should you have any questions throughout the webinar, please ask them in the chat section, and we will address these as time permits at the end of the sessions. In today's webinar, Toni Jones from KPMG and Chris McKenzie from Wiise will discuss what it takes to navigate the evolving manufacturing and supply chain environment in Australia. So first up, it is my pleasure to introduce Toni Jones, Partner in Charge, Sector Leader, Manufacturing, Life Sciences and Services at KPMG Australia. Toni has more than 22 years of experience in professional services and consulting in Australia and the United Kingdom in a variety of industries and organisations. She has a particular focus on business process improvement, operating model design, finance and back office transformation, systems specification, selection and implementation. Toni will discuss the evolution of manufacturing and Industry 4.0, key challenges impacting Australian manufacturers, and how you can stay relevant. Welcome and thank you, Toni.
Hi, everyone. Astrid, can you allow me to turn my video on, please? Thank you, Margot. Thank you for that introduction. And hello, everyone. It's great to have you all on the call. So I have just a number of small slides here that I just wanted to talk through with you all today. And as Margot said, we'll be touching on the way we see and manufacturing and the evolution in terms of the Industry 4.0 and where that's come from, the key challenges that we're seeing with our clients, they're sharing with us in the Australian manufacturing sector, and really some of the steps to take in terms of how you progress through and what are some of the key things to consider as you're working out how to grow sustainably and to scale your businesses as well. So we are all very aware, I'm sure, of the history and the evolution of manufacturing in Australia and the various stages of maturity. We've obviously had a very rich but also a very checkered history in manufacturing with such strength and sovereign capability, particularly as we look at on the slide there across industry level 1 and level 2 in particular. And I'd say we've probably also encountered across level 3. But over the last 15 years, we've seen what was once strong industries almost disappear in this country. And we've seen regions and cities completely reorientate from rich industrial and manufacturing precincts to alternative industries. And over the past 15 years, no other industry in Australia has shrunk more than manufacturing, with jobs in the sector decreasing from 10.7% in 2006 to just 6.2% in 2021. Since 2006, 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs has disappeared from Australia. In contrast, the number of mining jobs have doubled. And according to a report from the Centre for Future Work, Australians use $565 billion worth of manufacturers each year, but only produce $380 billion of that, or 68% of the total use. And that's less than any other OECD economy. Our experience through COVID and the challenges of supply chain, disrupted supply chains globally, and the broader geopolitical risks have been a stark realisation for us in terms of our reliance on other countries and the capabilities that we have lost within Australia. That, coupled with low productivity and GDP growth, places an even greater emphasis on the need to put greater attention on our manufacturing sector in Australia. Given our lack of investment in manufacturing over this period, I would really say, if we are really honest, that we are now falling considerably behind the rest of the world in respect of our maturity and the scalability of manufacturing. I think it's fair to say that we are now somewhere between Industry 3 and 4. with obviously some companies pushing towards 4 and 5, but others still back in 2 and 3. And there are many examples of companies embracing the elements of 3 and 4 in their operations. But I would challenge and put the question out there in terms of how many have embedded Industry 4.0 across all of their operations from end to end, with true data connection and interoperability. This means that we're trying to build our sovereign capability and scale our local capabilities in an environment that is largely still operating in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you look at the table on the page. And it makes it very difficult for us to scale and to be competitive on the global stage. We believe that the adoption of Industry 4.0 holistically and strategically across all aspects of the manufacturing business is one of the critical factors for Australia being able to succeed in manufacturing in Australia. The recent Business Council of Australia report released yesterday, Seize the Moment, states that if we want sustained wages growth and to maintain full employment, we need a reinvigorated economic growth agenda driven by large-scale investment, higher productivity, and greater innovation. Now, with the change, the departure of key sectors from the Australian economy, we still do have a wealth of skills in manufacturing, operations, engineering, and automation. And we are seeing the evolution of many businesses being established in the advanced manufacturing sector, particularly a lot coming out of what was a very, very strong automotive manufacturing sector here. These companies will play an integral role in Australia's future by helping build promising growth sectors such as renewable energy, creation and storage of data, agriculture, and the automation and robotics space. Digital and technical advances are changing the way products are made, and they're presenting opportunities for our technology businesses, advanced manufacturers, and innovators to get a stronger foothold on the large integrated global supply chains that dominate international trade. These hardware-driven businesses build on Australia's traditional skill base in engineering, energy, and manufacturing, allowing us to capitalise on the existing expertise to scale and grow. Again, just referencing the Business Council of Australia report released this week, Seize the Moment, it predicts that manufacturing will be one of the strongest growing sectors in Australia in the future at 12%. That's quite stark compared to where we are today. If we can adopt the appropriate technological advancements depicted in Industry 4.0 and 5.0 into the future to increase our productivity and ensure we scale and remain competitive on the global stage. If we just move to the next slide. We are talking to manufacturing clients every day in Australia. And these issues on the page here today is really what we're hearing from our clients. And hopefully you're not experiencing these, but I'm imagining that there's quite a bit of recognition for some of these. So in particular, the ones that come up over and over again is aging capital. So a lot of our clients and a lot of manufacturers across Australia are really facing operations with an array of aging capital, aging equipment, aging sites across their span of operations. In some cases, there's been updates to various systems, etc. But that's a smattering across the organisation that requires such a lot of capital to replace. But this really impacts on the ability to drive productivity, to drive innovation and efficiency. And we really see that impacts also on the ability to really effectively maintain assets, to attach and use data appropriately across all of your asset portfolio, and really does limit and is a key driver in unlocking efficiency, unlocking cost, and driving greater profitability. Along with that is outdated technology, and it's something that we see over and over again, both in the back office, which is often neglected, so finance, payroll, HR, etc., and reporting, but also out in the field in terms of operations. So there has been, I would probably say, in many organisations, piecemeal investment in some of the more leading technology, such as automation and maybe some robotics used in various sites. But by and large, this does seem to be done on a bespoke site-by-site basis, rather than the ability to look across the organisation with a comprehensive and integrated technology platform. I guess the good news is, from a technology perspective, there's been so many advancements, particularly in what's available to medium-sized organisations to really leapfrog where they are and to make some really well-informed decisions about investment. Supply chain, we've talked about supply chain. Obviously, going through COVID was a major disruption, and it's really highlighted the risks in having limited control over the end-to-end supply chain and reliance on the global suppliers in that. I think also in that is associated with that is ESG. That is a particular concern as it relates to supply chain in terms of being able to really identify the sources of your product and to ensure that you have sustainability and resilience. Access to skills is one we're seeing time and time again, both in terms of the access to traditional skills that are able to operate some of the aging technology and the aging capital assets, but also the attraction of new skills into the environment to cater for the future and obviously moving into what we call Industry 4.0 and 5. And so really it's important to understand, what your future business is going to look like and what future skills are needed. I mentioned ESG, obviously important in all aspects of your organisation, but in particular it also has a very strong regulatory environment as well. So there are things to build from a sustainability across your operation, but how do you ensure that you're identifying, tracking and reporting all the appropriate regulations as it applies to ESG? There's a lot of scrutiny on modern slavery, wage theft, diversity, inclusion, payroll, etc. And it's really important that manufacturers are aware of this and have the systems and data to be able to collect and manage that. Shrinking profit margins, as we talked about, the cost is rising, the cost of manufacturing. I heard someone say the other day that the split or the move has been historically the greatest cost in manufacturing was people. The greatest cost these days is energy. So energy transition and really managing energy utilisation is really important as you move through. I talked about increased regulations, obviously ESG, but more broadly across the business, and security and privacy is a really key issue as well. We're seeing more and more cyber attacks across Australia in small to medium businesses, in large corporates, and many businesses being caught by surprise in terms of how they address that. And also a really sort of new area of realisation is we can do all of the cyber checks that we want, but how do you actually manage the human risk? So we're really seeing the introduction and the awareness of the need to train people on behaviour and how we actually pick up and use data to track those areas of the organisation that are of greater risk. So I'd be interested, if we have time for questions later, is whether some of those issues are resonating and how you're dealing with those. So if you just go to the next slide, how do manufacturers stay relevant in this environment? Well, improving manufacturing performance and productivity, as I've said, is really key to the success of manufacturing in Australia and to increasing productivity, generating jobs and growth, and ensuring that all our resources are being utilised in the most efficient and sustainable way. Fundamentally, it's about doing more with less, whether it's your utilities, raw materials, waste, or people. And from our perspective, to build productivity, scale, drive profitability and efficiency, manufacturers really need to be considering how to build resilience across that supply chain. So what do you do onshore? What do you do offshore? How can you adapt your business to have more either partnership or ownership over your supply chain? And how do you use data and the integration of systems to be able to track and measure and understand where along that supply chain things are coming from and how they're being managed? It's also about ensuring that operations are really set up sustainably to support the scale and growth. So really taking a look at your overall landscape, looking at where you want to go as an organisation, and really identifying the appropriate places to make investment. Digitisation is key across key processes and functions across all aspects of the organisation, from your customer-facing functions, finance, HR, payroll, risk, asset management, and of course across your operations. And ensuring, as I said, that you're able to track and measure the appropriate things across the business, particularly ESG is one I've called out before, but also things like scheduling, asset maintenance, downtimes, employee uptimes, all that all that processing information is really important that you're able to track and measure. As I said before, the whole asset management process is a key area that we see across organisations in terms of what upside you can be achieved by really looking at the way you manage and utilise your asset management process. And accelerating investment in key technologies, and I really want to stress it's about the right time, the right size and fit for the time for your business and your business side. So the key really is to do this in an interconnected way and to get most out of the investments that will actually help you drive profitability and productivity. I think a lot of manufacturing organisations are struggling or dealing with the term digital transformation. It's a phrase that is being used a lot in media and at conferences. I have a particular view on the way Industry 4.0 and digital transformation kind of interrelates. You know, in my view, Industry 4.0 is a way to get there, and it's an all-encompassing concept. You know, digital transformation, data integration, AI, robotics, connected systems, machine learning, all encompassed by Industry 4.0. So digital transformation is one aspect of the overall journey. What we do know from working with real-world organisations, large and also small to medium businesses in manufacturing, is the key to survive in the market is they really need to do something. They need to evolve. They need to look at adopting modern technologies. And it's no longer really an option, but an imperative for organisations to survive, and really is key to getting the scale and the sovereign capability that we're trying to build. As I said before, I think the good news is that these technologies have evolved to such a point that they are now much more accessible to the medium-sized businesses that they were in the past. Just go to the next slide. Now, I've summarised the advantages and the benefits of Industry 4.0 here on the slide for you. And these are, oh, hang on, I'm going back to the other slide, I think. Yeah. So why would you do it? As I said, I think we've moved beyond a nice to have, and we're now in the world of imperative if we are to survive, but also to be able to perform on the global stage and to have a really sustainable and productive environment. So competitive advantage is a key point. You know, we are no longer just operating within Australia, but needing to compete both across the country, but also internationally. Data-driven decision-making is a key advantage. And that's the importance of really looking at Industry 4.0 and your overall plan from end to end. So the importance of being able to take data from any aspect of your operation and being able to use that to inform key decisions about how you operate, how you maintain, and how you drive the most out of all of your assets, both people, technology, and capital. Risk management, obviously ever increasing in this environment, not only ESG, but all aspects of risk mitigation, your people, your payroll, your technology, etc. So ever before, it's really important that that is covered. It drives improved efficiency and productivity. It's not about losing jobs, but it's about increasing the value add of the roles that people are performing and taking away that manual effort and driving that through technology. Overall cost reduction, if we're optimizing assets and processes more effectively, we're automating where we can, reducing the need again for manual effort, which leads to cost savings. And just to provide the agility and scalability to actually really adapt, be agile and change to business conditions, but to scale up to get that scale required from an Australian point of view. And overall confidence in the quality and accuracy that you have across your operation. So we do know that many that are embarking on this process are really reaping a lot of these rewards. There are many benefits in undertaking a planned and well-executed approach to Industry 4.0. We do know that there are instances where many, as I said before, are sort of taking a bit more of a bespoke, an ad hoc process where they're purchasing things along the way, rather than necessarily taking that overall approach. So we really recommend that to get the most out of a process such as this is really to think really clearly about your approach, do a well-planned exercise and execution of that. So overall, finally, it's really not about the systems. It's really about the fine-tuned alignment of all aspects of your operation, from people, processes, and systems. So where do you start? And what are the key considerations for you in embarking on this journey? We're just on the final slide there, Astrid. As I mentioned, I think one of the most important things is to adequately plan and execute, and to try to avoid just doing things piecemeal along the way. Thinking of the overall journey and planning as one overall piece. For example, if you're going about building a house or renovating a house, it's generally accepted that it works much better if you do an overall plan first of where you want to get to, and build in line with that overall plan rather than just making tweaks and individual changes along the way. And this is no different. So firstly, having a strategy. It doesn't have to be an onerous, very detailed strategy, but really to identify where you're trying to get to as a business, what objectives you're seeking, and what problems you're trying to solve. And then using that strategy to identify the key initiatives to be undertaken and the investments required. Developing a roadmap or a timeline of when all of the initiatives can be delivered and should be delivered. And really importantly, identifying the resource model around how you're going to get there. So some people will do things quicker, some people will take longer, and that's really sort of a cost-benefit type analysis. And in that, developing a really clear business case of the costs and the benefits that are expected to be delivered, and then using that business case to really track and measure your outcomes along the way. We often find when clients actually spend the time doing the business case up front, they're actually quite surprised by how affordable it is to invest in a program such as this, given the benefits that they see and the return on investment. And then execution is obviously key. So identifying the right partners, the right vendors, what you're going to do yourself, and how you're going to achieve those outcomes over your agreed time frame. So undertaking an approach such as this doesn't have to be onerous, and it doesn't mean you have to do everything at once. Just that you have an overarching plan and you know exactly where you want to get to. So we can obviously help you as we go along this journey in whatever way organisations are needing. But just basically ensuring that your investment and your outcomes are achieved, but that they're right size and appropriate for your business and where you're aiming to go. So that's where I have time for today. I will now hand over, I think I'm handing either back to Margot or over to Chris. I'm not sure. Back to Margot. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Toni. I think, a couple of the takeaways that I have is really, I guess it's very satisfying that Australian manufacturers are in the 3.0 to 4.0 stage. And of course, we have a big challenge to scale and be seen on the global stage. But as manufacturing is one of the largest growing sectors in Australia, we've got huge potentials. And I guess pointing out that ageing capital and outdated technology is one area that people can start to sort of think about. Human risk training and behaviour is also another area that I think needs to stay front of mind. And as always, we are constantly challenged to do more with less. So I want to invite everyone to meet Toni in person. She'll be at in the expert arena, presenting at the Modern Manufacturing Conference Expo, and obviously you can then talk to her about how you can create your business case and plan your journey a little bit more effectively. So thank you again, Toni. It's now my pleasure to introduce Chris McKenzie, Head of Pre-Sales at Wiise Australia. Chris has 9 years of experience educating and collaborating with prospects, customers, and IT partners on the Wiise solution. He's dedicated to empowering businesses in all industries with a robust cloud-based ERP solution. And Chris will discuss customer story, a heavy vehicle safety manufacturer, what is Wiise, and the Wiise Warehouse On Time app. Thank you, Chris, and welcome.
Thank you, Margot, and thank you very much for that, Toni. It was a lot of really good points, and it's interesting, just as Margot said, the transition that people have to take from 3.0 to go to 4.0. So far, you've heard from my colleague Toni at KPMG. We've been speaking about evolution, disruptions, digital transformation, and the trends in the manufacturing sector. To round off our discussion, it's important to talk about the how. And for the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'll be taking you through how to scale your manufacturing operations with a cloud ERP, Wiise. Wiise itself, it's made to be able to handle all of what you see here and handle it all in one place. But before we jump into Wiise itself, let's talk about somebody. In 1962, an engineer named Albert McPherson started a business working in auto electrics. Albert was a visionary and knew how to grow a thriving business, and he invested into systems and saw the need to do so and how that would support his growth. So in the 1980s, Albert invested in some new technology known as the Wang V system. And looking at it, you might be surprised to hear that it actually carried the business for 40 years. So over those 40 years, however, the business changed. When customers would come to Albert with a problem, he would start inventing custom solutions to meet those requests. And when his son Scott came into the business in 2020, Scott recognized the opportunity to move away from a service-based business and turn it into a manufacturing one. The problem was the beloved Wang system wasn't up to scratch. Well, custom built, it couldn't manage the assembly of orders, couldn't manage inventory, severely lacked efficiency, and it took 2 days to complete payroll each fortnight. Scott had already implemented a Microsoft CRM, but when he needed something to manage the new business, improve his operations, and provide him with data across his whole business to make faster and better decisions, he saw that there was a gap. Now, I tell you this story because it's a situation that we hear all too often from manufacturers. They struggle with understanding their true cost to produce a product. They have slow product production, planning and scheduling their inventory is manual. And this echoes the key issues that Toni spoke to earlier. These are things that we see regularly. And I don't mean to tell you that these struggles are what we hear of and we wouldn't wish on anybody's shoulders, because at the end of the day, that's where it lands. It lands on the individual and it lands on the team members within your business. So what is Wiise? Wiise is a powerful all-in-one business management software that's built on the Microsoft Dynamics platform and carefully curated by KPMG Australia in collaboration with Microsoft. Our ERP system integrates all of your essential business tasks like accounting, payroll, inventory, CRM, and more into one seamless connected system gives you that single source of truth. Here you can see how accounting for your bill of materials enables us to plan and execute production in one platform. Allows us to then take this, translate it into data we can produce insights from, such as sales execution, profitability, cash flow trends, and forecasts, as well as understanding your business's cash cycle. As technology is changing every day, every business needs to review their operations to ensure you harness the power of scalable technology solution to meet your business goals. That is where Wiise comes in. Built on the Dynamics 365 Business Central platform, Wiise has a great many features packed into it, as you can see here. We are motivated to bring operational efficiencies and grow with a growing business. We bring your entire business operations to one place, and with native integration with Microsoft 365 Suite, integrated payroll that is single touch compliant, and bank feeds that automatically download your bank statements to your ERP. As a modern ERP platform, Wiise has a strong focus on supply chain and manufacturing. Being able to understand and know your customers' demand, knowing lead times and supplying of your raw materials or products, as well as understanding expected delivery dates, and help you understand better planning with what you can utilize from the data that Toni spoke of. So understanding all of this, as well as the fact that you need to provide accurate delivery to then give happy customers, getting your raw materials in a timely manner, running a smooth production process end to end, and meeting customer delivery timelines, as well as keeping the clients happy, is what we try to provide within one solution. And if you're an Australian business already using Microsoft 365, you'll be relieved to hear that there's an ERP that stands out as the logical choice, driving a financial management system so that you have an Excel integration. So it's not drastically changing different systems if you use Excel to basically give yourself a little bit of human glue right now. Working better using Outlook and Teams notifications and workflows, and getting better ERP insights using Microsoft Azure AI and Power BI to present your progress. Well, now that we've talked about Wiise, let's see it in action. Part of what Scott liked about Wiise is that it's a cloud solution. I can access it on any internet browser, on any computer. All I need is my username and password. And it does have the option of single sign-on with Microsoft 365, being on the Microsoft Business Solution platform. Right now, we've logged in as a business manager, and I can see the finance trading occurring within my business. And part of how Wiise is tailored for Australia is that we can run payroll, and we can run any Australian award out of the box. Wiise understood how to remove the risk between payroll and accounting and reduce that time that Scott and the team were dealing with. So any manufacturer can basically run payroll within Wiise. And it's made to be that the worst thing a person could go through is not paying their people the correct amount. And the worst thing an accountant can go through is then having to explain this. Wiise Payroll understood this, and we've basically synchronized our accounting and payroll. So there's no exporting and importing of a journal. All pre and post tax deductions, as you can see here, are available with single touch payroll phase 2. As well as being able to manage full, part-time and casual employees, a payroll admin can see their leave accruals. They can see the leave balances, removing any guesswork that a person has to go through on a day-to-day basis. Even then, it's made to be able to handle expenses, rostering, timesheeting, leave management, and any payroll reports you have to produce out of the box. That way, a payroll admin can just log in, review requests that have come through, as well as stay up to date. For instance, what you're seeing here in our action items is an example of how, while we allow for award interpretation, we want to be able to allow for award maintenance within the system. So if you're paying your employees above the award, the payroll engine will allow so that you can see updates to that award. Wiise Payroll is set up so that it's able to accommodate for many of the awards set up for Australia, as you can see here, including Manufacturing and Associated Industries Award, Meat Industries Awards. There's a lot out of the box included. And the idea is that the moment there is a change, you can see that change within this alert. One click, then apply that change to all the awards that are included within Wiise. That way we take all the complexity of overtime, of work in lieu, and we can then, as you can see here, just synchronize that data to push through to Wiise, basically taking the guesswork out of how a person runs the payroll for their manufacturing business. So we've talked about payroll. Let's now talk about inventory control. So being an Australian manufacturer usually means that your raw materials are either domestic or they're brought in from overseas. And Wiise understood that being able to not only manage all those purchases, as you can see here, I've got multiple purchase order lines incorporating the quantities, outstanding quantities, the amounts invoiced, multi-currency, as well as being able to track them based on shipments. We understood that you want a simple view of that data. So here I have the shipments coming into my warehouse. I have them managed by vessel name, container number, and we can, as well as manage them by their arrival dates, incorporate partial receipts of those shipments. This gives us a simple view of purchases from one supplier or multiple suppliers, being able to track it in air, on sea, manage them by their LC number, bill of lading number, and incorporate it so that even though I've got multiple purchases coming in from one or more vendors, I've got a single point of truth where I can update the due date if there are any changes. And you can see here I'm incorporating a partial receipt. We also wanted to include budgeting of the freight, duty, or cartage. This may be overkill for some manufacturers, but if you experience quick turnover, this allows yourself to be able to include a budgeted amount for freight, duty, and it can include that within a foreign currency. So we can use an exchange rate service provided by the RBA so that you can calculate your realized and unrealized gains or losses, giving you the real profitability of your goods with a one-click method to apportion it across the different goods we've brought in. Each one of these items then, as we bring them, whether they're a raw material or whether they're a resale good, we can then provide an end user that last landed cost amount. Whole goal there is that a person can jump into the system and see the true profitability of their goods within Wiise. So we've talked about payroll, we've talked about inventory control, but we are in a manufacturing webinar, so let's jump and change our hat. We're going to jump from the business manager and we're going to now be a manufacturing manager. And because Wiise is a role-tailored solution, it's now going to remove all the financials, all the sales, and there we go. Now I'm seeing production. I can see all of our production orders, all of the related source documents, and the different ways that I can bulk process within the system. I can see the work orders we've got planned to land on our production floor, and I can see our released production orders on our production floor. I can see the start and end times to each work order, and this can, as you can see here, allow for management across multiple locations. Each of these items we include within the system then have live tracing. We can do tracking of lot numbers, serial numbers, and parcels within the system. But here you can see our projected availability. I can see how much of this item lively is included within work orders, and I can see the comparison. So how much is currently included within sales orders. So we can see that live amount and those live commitments being completed against one or all of our items across any number of locations. Now, this can include capacity management. So against this one item, we can see the work centers and machine centers calendars that we have for the good. We can also see the bill of materials. The bill of materials itself can be one or multiple levels. It can have, as you can see here, management across scrap, weight, but we can also manage phantom bill of materials as well. That way, if there's any changes made to this bill of materials, we have an active version, and we have our phantom bombs sitting ready to be utilized if required. All that's stored within the one item. We can manage this across multiple items, but the goal there is that a person can just jump into the system and they can see the structure of their item based on the bill of materials and the capacity. So I can see the multiple levels now. Yep, there we go. I can see how many pieces per parent or top item I have. I can see the minutes that are required at each part of the manufacturing stage. And bringing it back down for our accountants, I can see that commitment as a manufacturing manager, but I can then see the cost within the system as well. So I can see the cost of each stage of each part. And the goal there is that either for one or for all of our items, we can then see the material cost and the capacity cost of production. This isn't even accounting for subcontracting or manufacturing overhead, but we can include that as well. If I jump into that one item, we've been talking about manufacturing and how we can manage that through the production line within Wiise. But it's also to say that we can also include assembly. So if you just need simple manufacturing of the goods, as you can see here, they can be included, and we can include labor as a generic individual or as an actual person. Right there, you can see that the bills of materials within assembly can be multi-level, and this can all be assembled to order or manufactured to order. So we can change the bill of materials based on client requests. The goal there is that you have both the option for production and assembly within the system. And if you require both, they can both be accommodated for within Wiise, giving you that single point of truth. So we've seen payroll and how that can be addressed, tailored on Australian businesses. We've seen inventory control, and now you've seen a taste of the manufacturing within Wiise. It's easy to say that the manufacturing runs, but we can also provide you demonstrations where we go through how we can schedule manufacturing, how we can execute manufacturing, and include the MPS, the Master Production Schedule, as well as the MRP, the Material Requisition Planner. All that comes out of the box with Wiise. You can see there we can include demand forecasts. We've even got the option of using Azure AI to then suggest production and purchases based off client demand and trends that we're tracking within the system. That's all available out of the box with Wiise. To jump to a key requirement we saw needed and available, we've talked about the inventory control, the manufacturing. The last point I'd say would be actual warehouse processing. So Wiise included an app, Wiise On Time, that comes free with Wiise. Key goal here is that any user that's required to work within the warehouse can have a simple interface to be able to scan goods in and out of the warehouse, whether that is for production or whether that is just for the warehouse processes. There's no lengthy implementation. As you can see here, you just set them up with which company and which location. And this does work on mobile phones, both iOS and Android, and laser scanners, whether it's Zebra or any of the above. Yep, there we are. I'm now Hamish. I'm now at location north, and I can see my priorities, whether it's inbound, outbound, internal stock takes, and I can see what I have to be completing first. Key goal there is that a person can jump on their phone, they can see their to-dos, they can see their completed tasks as well. So this data is live and across multiple users working within this warehouse. So let's just look at an example. I'm going to jump into a put away. I'm going to now see the different items I'm supposed to be putting away within my warehouse. I'm going to now scan one specific item, and now it's telling me where to put that item. I could do a split bin, putting it across multiple locations in the warehouse, but there is myself scanning it into that bin. It autofills the amount for me. It asks me if I'm sure. And there we go. We now have success. We now have our goods being put away that easily, either on a personal phone, a work phone, or a Zebra scanner. All this, and I must stress, all of what we've showed today comes out of the box with Wiise. But we're not going to get too deep into the product. That's just a taste. There's more, naturally, and you can either see that via our website. But so what happened with Scott? So Scott's business has been using Wiise for the past 12 months, and the improvements have been profound. They've saved 2,500 hours a year on efficiencies. They've had 8% overall improvement in efficiency, and they've used what used to take them 2 days to complete payroll, now takes them 2 hours with what you've seen. Scott is taking the new foundation and building the manufacturing business, adding new products, improving their systems, and setting their team up for success. So how can we help? Wiise ERP prides itself in empowering manufacturing leaders to uptake the tech they need today, enabling them to start scaling their business. And this is basically through what you've seen, as well as everything that Toni spoke to before. There we go, by the minute. And thank you all for your time. You've been a wonderful audience. I think I'll now hand over to Margot, who's been moderating the webinar. Yeah, if any questions were posted via the chat while I was presenting.
Thank you, Chris. That was a great overview of Wiise software. And again, Chris will be presenting in the expert arena at the Modern Manufacturing Expo. And I'm sure he'll welcome you visiting him and asking him any questions that you have about Wiise or anything else, obviously, of interest at the Expo. So we do have a few questions in the question box, so that's a great thing. And Toni and Chris, if you can both be online, you can obviously answer the relevant questions if you don't mind. So the first one is, controlling costs due to rising inflation is a key challenge for my business. What's the best way to approach this sustainably? I think that's a Toni question.
Okay. Excellent. Well, hopefully I've sort of covered some of this in my presentation, but I do always say that planning and an overall view is kind of the first step. So I think it's really just having a look across your whole organization and really doing some analysis about where those highest costs are. So, are those costs things that could reduce as a result of renegotiated contracts, or are they costs that you can actually achieve benefits from through doing some sort of productivity or efficiency type measure? Are they utilities costs? So could you do a scan? There's many tools, we have many as well around, how do you actually measure your energy usage and plan for that? So I think, again, it's something to do rather than reactively around just cutting costs left, right, and centre. It's about really thinking about where you're trying to go as an organisation, and are there things you can do immediately, but are there other bigger programs that actually might cost you initially, but the benefits and paybacks will actually lead you to sustainable cost reduction in the future?
Great, thanks, Toni. I have another question for you. You made a great point on organisations are still in 3, working on getting to 4. What can KPMG do to assist manufacturers in this transition?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits that we bring to clients, and I've seen this across other industries as well, is really about connecting all the dots and helping you to really articulate what you're dealing with right now and where do you want to go, and how do you bring that together in terms of a plan and a roadmap and investment case that actually presents a really good way of getting there and to help you manage through that. So often, as I said before, a lot of organisations have adopted some of these technologies, but they might do so on a piecemeal basis, or they're sitting there. We've got a number of clients that are sort of grappling with we have many sites, we have lots of aging assets and technology, and it just seems unfathomable about how we can approach this because the scale of investment seems so big. Often when you break that into a strategy, which again, it doesn't need to be war and peace, but a really clear view of where you want to get to, and then you do the business case. The business case is often really illuminating in terms of what benefits you can actually drive for your business going forward. So we can certainly help that in terms of working side by side with your business to come up and help you identify something that's actually fit for purpose for you and where you want to go.
Great, thank you. Question for Chris. So can Wiise really tell me the true cost of my raw material? I want to know the exact cost it requires me to make the product.
Yeah, it's a good question. Raw material is a very broad term because we could apply that to any one of the different Wiise clients, whether it's food manufacturers, machinery manufacturing, or chemical manufacturing. But short answer is yes. Yeah, Wiise has built-in functionality like the landed costing we saw that you can use to then see the true cost of your raw materials and then thereby the true cost of production, the true cost of your finished goods, and then ultimately the profitability. So yeah, short answer is yes.
Great. Chris, another one for you. What kind of customers or companies does Wiise cater to besides SGS Go? Can you give some more examples or use cases?
Great question. I know that's one that my partner account managers would love to answer. I've got a couple. Wiise serves all types of different companies and industries within Australia, whether you're a distributor, wholesaler, manufacturer. The two examples before, food, chemical, equipment, or machinery. Some others would be True Blue. They're a chemical manufacturer, and through COVID, we had to help them basically because everyone needed hand sanitizer. Bastion Cycles is another happy Wiise customer manufacturer. High-end cycles, we saw an example of a bicycle within that demo, and they've got much better examples out there, and they use Wiise. And manufacturing organizations, Armadillo Group, someone who realized great value with Wiise. They basically had to provide high-end top chemicals and lubricants and have that equipment for hydraulic points and components. A couple others I know I can mention because it's on our website, Ryan Aerospace, Proform Foods, and Fresh Frontier we recently brought on. And I think Astrid would tell me, there's a case study on our website for that as well. So there's definitely a wide range of different clients that Wiise has worked with in our time.
Great. Stephen asked the question, and at the end of his question, he actually said, by the way, we're getting true cost of raw material via Wiise, so he can back up your statement. But the question that Stephen has is, I've recently joined my workplace as an ops manager, and we've recently implemented Wiise. Currently, business doesn't have a Wiise overall owner or champion, and I feel we are being a bit siloed in leveraging Wise's capability. So the question is, do you see it critical to have one person who takes ownership of the whole business as part of their role?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Short answer is yes. You always need what we would call, I wouldn't just say just subject matter experts, but also what we call Wiise champions within the business. It's a partnership, both with how Wiise provides the technology, how your business advisor tells you how the business is going to operate and how you can utilize Wiise, as well as someone that can then own and share that good news. Putting the system on as a project, but also then realizing the solution's true potential is another ongoing project that it's good to have ownership from all different teams, but having a champion basically makes it a lot easier. Being a cloud solution, we've got updates rolling twice a year from Microsoft, plus some of that IP that Wiise rolls out free, like the Wiise on time. So having an internal champion that can basically read the emails and correspondence and the blogs and then communicate to that team makes it a lot easier.
Toni, this is a question for you. I think you've sort of answered it, but maybe you just want to just reiterate a couple of little points. I've not yet started on Industry 4.0. How do I get started?
Yeah, I think I was actually just going to add to the other question then, just quickly before I go into that. In terms of Wiise, in terms of key owners, I think regardless of, I guess, the system, I think it's also really important when we're doing technology projects that the executive or the key general managers are embracing it as well, and it's not just sitting in IT as something being championed. You know, that's where we see the most benefits that organizations get out of these sorts of projects is if everyone is kind of tied into it in terms of the business outcomes to be achieved, not just tech. So I just reiterate Chris's points about champion, but also really how do you make sure that you've got, you know, your key leaders really supporting and champion that as well. So in terms of where you start, you know, the thing that we find most effective is really sitting down and doing almost that plan on a page in terms of where do you want to get to as an organization from a business objective point of view, and what are your constraints? So what are your key issues that you're trying to overcome, or what's stopping you getting there right now? And then from there, you can really articulate the different pieces of work that you need to do. And, you know, part of that is looking across your IT landscape and saying, okay, what does it actually look like today? What does my business landscape look like? What are my problems that I'm trying to solve? And then from that, what are the different pieces of work that you need to do over a period of time that will allow you to get there? And then most importantly, pricing it and costing it, but also, as I said, it's really important to get the outcomes and the benefits. You know, that's how you get something built and sort of championed through the organization, and to make sure everyone's committed, and then how you make sure that you're actually implementing what you promised to do. So the first point in time is spending some time, you know, they always say planning is, you know, you've got to do the plan. And I suppose I reiterate that, but I'd also emphasize it doesn't need to be a laborious process. You know, it's something that can be done in quite short space of time to allow you to sort of move on.
Right. Just a couple of more quick questions for you, Chris. Is there a comparison chart between Wiise, Great Plains, and Pronto?
That's a great question. There's a number of different market share reports, as well as comparison documents between us, ERPs such as Great Plains and the other on-premise Microsoft solutions. And yes, there's different competitors such as Pronto that we're compared with in market that we found to be present within Australia. So I think those comparison charts go through the functional difference, but they also go through, I guess, the overarching solution architecture, differences in manufacturing, finance, and with Wiise, the utilization of Microsoft and other tools like that, how we work with teams as such. So short answer is yes, and our team more than be happy to provide that to you either via the website or at the event.
Yeah, and I think maybe we can send something to Andrew to invite him to come and meet with you at the expo so that he can sort of see that firsthand.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, Andrew. And last one, Chris, is can Wiise define and measure wastage?
Yeah, the silent killer wastage. Yeah, we certainly can. So we serve clients and customers to reduce operational efficiencies. We saw that both on the capacity side from the work centers and machine centers that your team members work at on the production floor, as well as wastage or scrap that you have to go through when it's going through the manufacturing process. We try to enable our clients to control this, but also get visibility on their end-to-end operations, because if you don't have visibility, then you can't understand how exposed you are. So yeah, we try to reduce those exposures, and that's including the landed costing we saw, that's with the team capacity utilization and real-time tracking. I'm not even touching on Microsoft AI and everything they're rolling out continually on that front. But yeah, short answer is yes.
Great. All right, well, look, thank you everyone for taking part in today's webinar. We really like to thank Toni and Chris again for their contribution, and of course invite you to come and meet them and the team at the Modern Manufacturing Expo that's being held next month, 20th and 21st of September at the Sydney Showground. The Expo and the Expert Arena are all free for you to attend, so we encourage you to come along, bring your team, find out some more about all the greatest innovations that are happening in this space. If you want to dive deep into smart manufacturing, we do have a conference on day 1 that you can attend. After the webinar, we will send out a thank you email and we will have a link in there for you to register. But we'd love to see you all there. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you in Sydney next month.
Thank you. Thanks, Margot. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Margot. Thanks, Toni. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a good day.